this is start off with a theory. Constitutional monarchy, what they did is they went from absolute, right, and they created constitutional, where they have the documents that tell them how the government is broken up. Okay, everybody clear on that one? So the 1841 we looked at last class talked about all of the government pieces. We're not going to go into depth in that, but that's just what it is. Okay, one key thing here, the king or the monarch still played a part in all three parts in the beginning of our constitutional monarch. Okay, now whether that was good or bad, time has told, and the Li'i have made their changes there. So in 1851, our people are constant people of change, right? We were not satisfied sitting under the coconut tree in Samoa, right? Or in the Marquesas, or in Nukuhiva. We did not get satisfied by coming to Hawaii. We still went to Rapa Nui and other places and up and down, and we are explorers. That's who we are. If someone tells you you have to live in Hawaii for the rest of your life because that's what's important, that's not the way of our people. Okay, I'm waiting for the first Kanaka scientist person to make the freaking moon accessible or Mars accessible, because guaranteed it's gonna be one of us, right? Where we go and we live on those places, because that's who we are, right? And so again, same thing in the constitutional changes. If you look at it, the legislation passed a resolution to advise the commission to revise and make better the Constitution of 1840. They went around, they did not look around themselves and say, okay, how can we make ourselves better? Let's look at the best school in Hilo to compare our school to make it better. No, they went to what's the best place, the best constitutional area that has the best goals and values. And so they ended up with the 1780 Massachusetts Constitution. So when we say, oh, look, we copied America, it's very similar. Why? Because if you read the American Constitution, it's based off of Christianity. It's based off of Protestant religion, the same religion as the Hawaiian Kingdom, the same religion as the British Empire. Okay, it's based off the same beliefs and values. So of course they would use that as their foundation. Does that make sense? Right? We're not dumb, right? We see a wheel. We don't have to remake the wheel. We just use the wheel, right? We saw electricity. Kalakaua did not come back home and say, okay, everybody, you got to learn how to make electricity. No, he brought Alexander Graham Bell's electricity and blah, 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 and a telegraph, and he brought it home, right? See how that makes sense? Does that make sense to you guys? Right? And that's the way of our people, okay? We're not stupid. We're not lazy. We don't have to know everything, but we know how to get it. We know how to work around it, right? And then they revised the Constitution. So they sit there in the Constitutional Convention and they revised it. So on June 14, 1852, the next Constitution after Kauikeoli's was put into play, okay? But this Constitution did have some pieces of the absolute monarchy still there. So I want you to take note of this, because this answers that question, right? This is how the king could make some changes, right? Article 39, okay, with the approval of the cabinet and the Privy Council, the king could declare war, right? The king could do it. Say like, hey, you guys invaded us, we're going to war. Now, most countries like America, the president declares war. You have committed an act of war against the American people, right? He declares war. But does that mean America's at war? No. What that means is it now goes to Congress and the legislature votes. And if they agree that we're at war, then we're at war. Does that make sense? So when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, the president went up that same day and said, I declare war against the Japanese Empire. Well, his declaration didn't declare the war. His declaration just gave the Congress the opportunity now to either agree or not agree. That's how it works. Now, in this Article 39, in the Hawaiian Kingdom one, it didn't happen, right? We got to look at what's the experiences that kept that in there. Well, the French took us over. The British took us over, right? So those experiences were still there, right? So from the experience of the Hawaiian Kingdom, they decided to keep that in there in the 1852 Constitution, so that the king could say, no, we're at war, and fight back. See how that works? Now, quick note, if you zoom up to 1893, that was removed. So could the queen declare war against America? Right? She could declare it, but could we go to war just with the queen saying we're going to war? No, had to have legislature involved. The people had to agree. So when they say the queen was weak or she wanted to prevent bloodshed, well, legally, she could not start a war. She could declare war, declare the act of war, and then she'd have to go back to the legislature. But what we know is the legislature, by the evidence, because of the provisional government, was not in session. So could the Hawaiian Kingdom have gone to war in 1893? No. They could have went to war in 1892. They could have went to war in 1894, but they couldn't have gone to war in 1893 just by the fact it's against the law. Oh, did everybody see that? Nuts. Okay, so we're tripping out here. Like, what's going on? And then Article 45, this one here is called the royal prerogative, basically allows the king to do whatever they want. I want to tax you 10% of your income because you're browner than me. Bam. King signed, the Kuhina Nui signs off, the premier signs off, it's law. See how that works? King's prerogative. They can do whatever they want. Okay, and so here in 1839, the Hawaiian Kingdom was on this again. We talked about the French thing, the last one, right? And so they extorted $20,000. What happens is the French come back. They in 1943 they signed the contract, right? The treaty. They recognize the Hawaiian Kingdom as their equal, and so they come back in 1846 and they return the $20,000 that they extorted from the king. Okay, what happens later? A couple days later, the king turns around and signs another agreement or another treaty, okay, with the French and the English, basically giving them unequal treaty rights, which means that their people, if they kill somebody in the Hawaiian Kingdom, they held to their own country's laws, not to the Hawaiian Kingdom laws. Does that make sense? And so they signed that anyway. He signs that as he's learning about it. Again, this has changed later, but this is experience, right? The ali'i are learning from the experience of how to deal with international entities like this, okay? Now, August 1849, the French consular ambassador accuses the Hawaiian government of violating the treaty. He says that they didn't treat Catholics equal, right? That they are giving taxes on their liquor, on alcohol, and then their unequal treatment of the Frenchmen. That they're not getting, basically benefits. Now, we just talked about that, right? We got to understand, right? We don't want Catholics, because Catholics in that time were looked at as idol worshippers because they worshipped statues of Jesus and all the other things. They didn't want liquor because we already knew that that was a huge issue from the time of Kamehameha Ikahi, right? And then the French wanted not fair treatment, but they wanted unequal treatment, right? And that to them, that was fair. Okay, and you see how that is kind of like just fluff, like BS, right? And so again, they landed armed forces there, okay, trying to take over, like we mentioned. The French landed again, similar to what happened with Kauai Keoli. They have an investigation. It's 10 days long. They find out that it's not true, that it's not fair, yada, 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 and they're gone. Okay, the two warships are now having to leave Honolulu, but the tensions are still there. So at this time, Kamehameha, the ali'i, the monarchs are looking around and they're like, wow, okay, Kamehameha III had already started talks with the United States about protection. Because remember what happened with the French, right? And the British saying they're not protecting them. So Kamehameha is thinking, okay, big fish. I need to be a big fish. I need to have protection from the other big fish. And so what happens here is that the idea of United States annexing America is actually vetted by Kamehameha Ekolu, right? They did research and they tried to negotiate of how Hawaii could become annexed and become a part of the United States of America. It was our people who started that. So people say, well, they didn't really know the treaty or they didn't know annexation and all that stuff. Hawaiians, we don't even know. We're so stupid. We never know how to vote. Like all those kind of stuff. That's BS. Our ali'i and our government already have the facts that they actually researched, okay, and studied the annexation 30 years prior to the legal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom government. Okay? It's not something new. Like our ali'i looked at all of our stuff. So this is what I want to tell you. If you are a true American patriot and you study your genealogy and you find that you don't have any American heritage, but you want to be an American, your option is this: end the occupation of Hawaii by the United States so that we can vote to become Americans. And we can really vote ourselves, our own people can vote to become the 58th state. You see how that works? But the key first is to end the occupation, no matter what. Now, if you're a Hawaiian national and you're like, oh, hell no, I don't want to be part of America, well, guess what you have to do? We have to end the occupation so we can continue to govern and our people can make the decisions for our people. You guys see my point? So people every year like, oh, Kumukeli, he's a racist, and Kumukeli, he's like Hawaiian, blah, 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 blah. This is what I want to tell you, is Kumukeli don't care. Like, no matter which side you're on, Even though my personal side is not necessarily the side that I share with people, but no matter which side you're on, what we got to do, got to end the occupation so that our people can decide, period. Does that make sense? It doesn't matter which side. The path is the same. And again, here's an example of our people making a decision for our people, right? They evaluated the annexation when Kameme the Third dies, but it moves on to where Kameme the Fourth says, no, he ends it. I don't want to. Okay. And then remember from Nomako Kamana, when the Kameme the Fourth and Fifth were younger, they traveled to America. They felt the racism. They felt the sexism. They felt the non-emancipation of the slaves. They felt like the oppression of the Chinese people, right? They felt all these pieces of racism and anger and hate. Is that a part of our kingdom and our history? Ole, no way. And so, of course, he was like, I'm not into that, right? And so again, when Kamehameha the Fourth, Kamehameha the Third dies, this is what he leaves about his predecessor, right? The age of Kamehameha Ekolu was that of progress and liberty, of schools and of civilizations. He gave us a constitution and fixed laws. He secured the people in the title of their lands, the mahele, and removed the last chain of oppression. Okay, he gave them a voice in his councils. He made them part of his government, right? By making laws in which they governed. He was a great national benefactor and has left the impress of his mild and amiable disposition on the age for which he was born, right? He's talking very highly of him, like, oh, all the stuff that he did. He has big shoes to step into, right? So here's some of the changes that happened in Kamehameha Eha's lifetime. So he basically separated the Kuhina Nui, went from, remember we said, like the hand of the king to the running of government. Now he separated it. So the Kuhina Nui now becomes like the advisor to the king, and the Minister of Interior runs the government. So he makes that change. Okay, he starts the DOE. If you go on the DOE website, guess what it says? Started in the Hawaiian Kingdom under the Department of Public Instruction. Remember I said if you want to see the Hawaiian Kingdom, all you gotta do is open your eyes. That's ours. Okay, so he started the DOE. He actually also started the Department of Health, Queen's Hospital, free health care for all Hawaiians, right? So again, like a lot of those pieces, man, was done during his time. He saw great pain. His son died when he was 4, and he ended up dying shortly after his son. Okay, one big thing I mentioned earlier, but here we go. Legislative sessions happened every 2 years. So remember, the queen could no more grant grant amnesty or declare or have war against the king from the kingdom because she wasn't in charge of the legislature. It can only be done every 2 years. Then when we go to the bayonet constitution, the second part of your question, the same thing. The legislature never signed the Constitution of 1887 because they were closed. Therefore, is the Constitution legal? Not according to Hawaiian Kingdom law, because it was never signed by the legislature. Does that make sense? And so, Kamehameha dies November 30th, 1863. He dies. He doesn't leave an heir. And so the law says at this time in the 1852 Constitution says if there's no heir, the next ruler is the prime minister. And so what I want you to understand here, see this woman right here, Victoria Kamamalu? Lots of times, how many of you guys know that her name, Victoria Kamamalu, is his premiere here? But basically, she was the queen, Victoria Kamamalu, after Kamehameha IV's death. Please give me a thumbs up if you knew that. Nobody. Okay, so last period had one person. Yeah, yesterday, 0. But they don't tell that story. Queen Kamamalu was actually a queen for 1 day, according to Hawaiian Kingdom law. And that very same day, she turned around and appointed Kamehameha V. Okay, so when we look at the thing of the monarchs, even that is a lie. It goes K1, K2, K3, K4, K5. It's actually the royal lineup should have been K1, K2, K3, K4, Queen Kamamalu the first, then K5. You see how that worked? But just those small details get left out because they feel like it's not important, but it's super important, right? She turned around and she had the right to declare anybody she wanted, and she chose La Capoeira, right? And so it starts his rule. So here's his changes that he created. He took the throne, and in the Constitution of 1852, it did not require the king or the monarch to take the oath to follow the Constitution. It required them to take the oath after they approved the Constitution, right? And so he didn't approve the Constitution. He didn't. The Article 94 states the king, after approving the Constitution, shall take the oath. So he became the king, but he didn't take the oath to follow the law. See how that's a problem? And he didn't do it because he didn't believe in it. And so right here, there's a part in there he didn't believe in. Remember we talked about those absolute powers of the king? He didn't believe in that. Remember the fourth and the fifth both tried to remove that to give the power to who? The people, not the monarch. What's best for the people and best for the Aina. I know I said that like 1,000 times in class. That's what they're doing here. Moving up to today, we're looking at things like Hawaiian homestead. Is that best for the people and best for the Aina? That's a decision that you got to make, right? Is the TMT best for the people and best for the Aina? That's a decision you got to make, right? Is buying your food 85% from different countries best for the people or best for the Aina? That's why you all should be in Nohona, Hawaii. Okay? And so those are decisions that you got to make. The economic piece, that's the daily decisions that you got to make now. And so here, what happens here, Kamehameha the Fifth creates a constitutional convention to try and change these two articles. Article 45, take out the prerogative of the royal king to do whatever they want. Okay, the royal prerogative, take that out. And then Article 94, no, if you become the king or the queen, you have to take the oath to follow the Constitution. Those two articles, he wants them to be removed. So he puts together, and he wants to separate the executive, legislature, and judicial. So he puts a committee together, and they try to do it. Okay, they meet, they have their convention, and they can't agree. They can't get it done. Yeah, and so he kind of gets frustrated. Okay, and what he does is he's like, well, they're deadlocked. Okay, I'm gonna change this. And so what he does is he uses Article 45. This is answering the question. Okay, remember the fifth uses Article 45, which is allows him to do whatever he wants as long as the premier agrees, right? To get rid of Article 45. Everybody hear that? So one more time, he uses the Article 45, the very article that allows him to do this, to make his own decisions as the king, to remove the power of him as a king making his own decision. Everybody got me? Okay, and so again, he comes around and he takes a royal prerogative and he does it. Okay, in 1852, he changes the Constitution and he wipes out that, and he also makes it where you have to pledge to or abide to the Constitution before you can be installed as the new monarch. All right, so here we go. He proclaims the new Constitution on August 20th, 1864. Okay, he also changes the electoral qualifications, which means that he is allowing people to vote even if they don't own land. Because remember, what's best for the people and best for the Aina, that's what he's going to do. So he changes that. What's interesting here to remember, this reduces the power of the Privy Council. This gets rid of the point, why does he need their premier anymore if all the decisions have to go through the legislature? So they get rid of the premier position, right? The crown takes the oath of office now every time. So when the new king comes on, he has to pledge, right? The legislature becomes the unicameral, so they're in charge of the laws now. The king is no longer in there, okay? And separation of powers is complete. The king is separated from the judicial, separated from the legislature, just like America, just like Great Britain. You see how that worked? Now, this wasn't done because of the people objected. It was like, kue. This was done because the king decided this is what was best for the people and best for the Aina. Okay, coming up here to the end, in his speech, he basically shares that by the Article 45, I have the right to make a new constitution, and I've done it. Okay, and so the legislature responds. When he presents it in 64, they respond back and say this: mahalo. We recognize that you have the right to do whatever you want according to the Article 52 or Constitution of 1852. And we applaud your efforts. And the last line says there, this privilege at some time that Article 45 could have been used at some time in the future, okay, might have been productive of untold evil to the nation, right? If the king had the ability to do that and the king was under threat, it could cause untold evil to the Hawaiian nation. Okay, our second part of the question, 1887, the Bayonet Constitution. They forced Kalakaua to sign a new constitution when the legislature was out, right, against his will, which gave power to a small foreign majority. Okay, that's the untold evil that they were talking about in 1864. But just know, if Kalakaua and the legislature was not in session, could Kalakaua make it law? Thumbs up or thumbs down? According to what we just learned, he cannot. He has no power from 1864 to make any laws. Brahman is the executor, the guy who executes. He's not the lawmaker. So how could he sign a new constitution if he can't make the laws? See how that works? That's answering the question for today's question. So again, here we go. Constitutional changes. Commandment of the Fifth dies. There's no longer a premier. Now there's no longer a person to appoint the monarch. Guess who picks them? Us, the legislature. So King Lunalilo becomes the first elected king, elected by the people. That's why they call him the people's king. Okay. Also, he dies shortly, but King Kalakaua becomes the second elected king, right? They changed some of the voting pieces there as well. They create the board of genealogies because this is what they know. In order to be the king, oh, listen good. One of you may be the king or the queen someday, and I totally believe that. In order for you to do that, you have to know your genealogy. You have to know your mo'oku'auhau. You have to have royal lineage. And from looking at your genealogy projects, many people in Hihimanua Kane have that. Okay, that's the first step to restoring the monarchy, restoring the leaders, the government. Okay, you guys will be our leaders. Maybe not directly yet, but you got to know the laws so you can make those decisions. Okay, so the board of mo'oku'auhau is established. Consequently, in 1897 or 93, the first board that was wiped out was the board of mo'oku'auhau. As soon as the provincial government took over, that's the first place it destroyed. Yeah, see, wonder why. If the people don't remember who can be the king, will there be another king? Ole. Okay, and so again here, Article 22, sorry, the 22nd article talks about that. In order to be the king, you have to have chiefly descent.